Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Conversations with Nicole Show. I'm Nicole Huckabee. My guest today is my longtime friend, Chip White. I'm excited to have him back to talk about his latest project, Relatively Famous. In this engaging podcast, Chip interviews relatives of well-known public figures, exploring their unique perspectives and experiences. For those who may not know, Chip's sister is none other than Vanna White, the iconic co-host of Wheel of Fortune. With decades of experience in the entertainment industry, including producing films, Chip brings a wealth of knowledge to his new venture in podcasting. I really hope you enjoy our conversation between two old friends. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Conversations with Nicole Show. I am delighted to have as a return guest my dear friend, Chip White, now the host of the Relatively Famous podcast. Chip, it's good to see you.
You too, Nicole. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to see you again. I've been following, listening. I'm super excited and proud of all you've done since you've moved to Charlotte.
Gosh, thank you so much. We learn to transition in every season of our life. I think that you could probably speak to that really well, as you have now transitioned to the great state of Texas and have started your podcast. But yeah, I'm working on this new season of my life, and I'm just glad that you and I have stayed connected. And it's really interesting. Everywhere I go, most people know you, Chip. So you're famous.
Oh, interesting, because I don't feel like anybody knows me, but that's okay.
They do. They do. They'll say, oh, you, I was like, well, I have some friends. You may know Chip White. I know Chip White. Yes.
How do they say it? Like, I know Chip White, or, oh, I know Chip.
I know Chip
That's the
White.
question.
Exactly. It's all in how it's said. They love you, as do I. I brag. I say we're longtime friends, and I'm so thankful for that. But so it's great to connect with you again to talk about your next project, which is Relatively Famous podcast. Tell me how it
Yeah.
all came about.
So, following in your footsteps, I always feel like I'm a day late and a dollar short in everything I decide to do. But the podcast came about. I don't know if you remember, if you've looked on my YouTube way back in the 90s, we did Vanna White's Brothers talk show. We did a pilot
Okay.
in LA. Kind of pitched it. It was not the best time of my life. And thank God I probably didn't get it, because I'd either be dead or have no bridges at all to even worry about rebuilding. Yeah, not that great time of my life. But the idea is always kind of still stuck in my head. I threw it up on YouTube. It got some views in little segments, and we moved to San Antonio, and I kind of was connecting with some of the film people here, and this lady at Teresa over at UIW, Incarnate Word, said, you need to meet Philip Nelson. He does the 48 Hour Festival. He's a film guy. Called him up. He said, yeah, come by the office. We chatted, and I was telling him about the pilot, and he pulled it up on the YouTube and we had a good laugh. And I said, I had this idea. I want to do a podcast. Well, he builds podcast studios for a living and broadcast studios. So he's like, I told him the idea, and he said, I'm in. You book the guest and do the interviews. I'll do everything else.
Oh gosh, what a blessing.
Oh, shook hands, called him up 2 weeks later and said, I've got so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so booked on Thursday. Okay. So he had a
Wow.
studio. He already had a studio built in, and he has a comic book shop called Nelco Comics here in San Antonio. And he built a studio in there because he wanted to have some fun with a podcast studio. It looked like a comic book shop. So we shoot out of there. We started last October. Kind of took a little while to kind of get 11 episodes in the can. We wanted to get some episodes in the can before we launched. We actually launched of 2024. As of today, we're 18 episodes in. We've got several more in the can. We try to keep a month's worth of shows in the can because of holidays and things coming up. It takes time. Thank God I had Philip, because I am not a tech guy. My film people tell you I'm not a tech guy. I've talked to people about, they're like, oh, it's so easy. Go buy this and this. You plug it in and you got a podcast. I'm like,
Trust me, I feel your pain. I am not a tech girl. And every time I think I get ready to do something and I have all the bells and whistles lined up and things are good, something happens. So I'm so happy for you that you have someone that can take care of all that stuff.
Yeah, I would have struggled otherwise. I mean, I did. I never would have done it. It just, it's not, it's not the stuff that intrigues me. I
Yeah.
mean, he's researching platforms and he's making contacts over at uh, streaming Paramount and Pluto to put to buy ad time and all these kind
Wow.
of crazy things that I just, I'd be like, oh, it's up there. What now?
Yeah, what do we do next? No, I
Yeah.
totally get that. Well, that's great. So, of course, you had someone famous on your podcast to start off with. You want to share with my audience who that was that's related to you?
I had my niece, and we have, Vanna did a promo for us. She
Yes.
was obviously my connection to why to do the podcast. But I had my
Yeah.
niece, Gigi, which was awesome because the crazy thing is probably the longest conversation I've ever had with her, one on
How?
one,
Oh,
and not because of bad stuff. It's just,
yeah.
sorry, my dog is squeaking his toy. I don't know
It's
if you hear it. We have a
beautiful
new
thing.
puppy.
Yeah, I love that.
Um,
It's real life. It's real life.
Yeah. So, Gigi it was kind of really cool to have her on. I'm going to have Nico on at some point, my nephew. Um, our guests are growing. I started with reaching out to people that I know, and they would say, oh, call so and so. And that person would say, oh, call so and so. And, we're just trying to plug away. I reach out to a lot of people on Facebook and keep my fingers crossed someone will respond.
I know how that is too, reaching out to guests and different people and explaining yourself and hoping that they'll take the bite, right? So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what your guests have brought to the table as uh, being related to someone that's famous. I mean, that is a different perspective and view.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the thing is like I wanted to see how do other people's lives who might be siblings and it depends on if they're a sibling or they're a cousin, if they're a dad or mom, it's different. Um, like my first guest was Bill Field. He's a cousin of Lyle Lovett, and the distant cousin. It was kind of I thought he was a little closer than he was, but it turned out to be a great interview.
Yeah.
And he looks a lot like him, so there's no denying who he is. Um, John Eisman from Myrtle Beach. His daughter is Madison Eisman. That was kind of fun because I didn't know a lot about Madison. I've never met John. And we got visitmyrtlebeach.com is now my sponsor. So that was kind
Lucky
of fun.
you.
Yeah,
Maybe watch this and give me a little plug too.
there you go. You
Since
never
we
know.
both
I know
speak
they're always
time,
looking for
right?
stuff. Dom DeLuise's son, David, was hilarious. And I had met Dom years ago when I worked at King World, and he kind of gave me some life advice, and I shared that with David. David shared, he gave me that same advice, and I use it in acting class.
Oh,
Um,
that's so cool. Yes.
yeah, I've had Keith Coogan, who was Jackie Coogan's grandson, coming up. Jim Brown's daughter. Um, Sometimes I forget, man. It's got crazy.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
okay. But I think it's an interesting concept. So is someone going to interview you for your own show?
I don't know. Maybe I'll do. Maybe I'll do one of those
Solo
reverse
performance.
green screen
Yeah.
interviews.
Get your producer to ask you what it's like to be Vanna
Yeah.
White, or
Yeah,
But
well, maybe. I figured enough people interview me about it, so
that's true. I don't know. People love hearing from you. I love talking to you. I always love the stories that you've shared with me in the past about your life, about your filmmaking. I just think you have so much to bring to the table. So, anytime you want to share on my platform, you have an open invitation.
awesome. Thank you. Now we'll now have to get one of your relatives on mine. You know,
Oh, let me pick it before I say it, right? That's the key.
yeah.
Tell them to say, don't say this, don't tell them that. No. Has
Look,
anybody
the
to tell you anything when you've had them on, or have been like,
um
oh, I can't tell you that, or
some, but the podcast is really more about who they are.
yes.
I try to kind of focus on them. Um,
Sure.
I had a friend who I've known for several years. Her dad was a Canadian singer. He wasn't very well known in America, but he was pretty big in Canada in the
Yeah.
60s, 70s, and 80s, and I think into the late 80s, early 90s. Um, but I knew she had a father who was a singer, and I've heard some of his music. And she got on the show, and she just kind of talked about like when her father came out gay, and it
Mhm.
ended the marriage, and how it kind of divided the family. He ended up passing away from AIDS, and I don't think she was wanting to talk about it. It just kind of came out, but it was this great perspective of how, as a teenager, she was dealing with it and not dealing with it, and ashamed how she became an AIDS activist later in life. So that was totally shocking news to me, and um,
Yeah. That's great perspective, though. I think that you are finding stories and finding experiences in people's lives that others can relate to. And in a lot of ways, when people are able to share those things, it's a bit therapeutic and healing for them as well, especially if they know they've gone through it and they can help others. And so that is very special what you learned from that young lady from that interview.
yeah, in summer, they're uh, Alfonso Freeman, who's a Rock Hill, South Carolina person. Morgan's son. He's he understands who his dad is. He's worked with his dad. He's friends with but he's trying extremely hard to make his own name. And
Hmm.
it's tough when you look like your dad and you sound like your dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting to hear how he's trying to create that journey when you know you, I want to say three strikes. You got the strikes against you, dude. You look like him, sound like him. You know, um,
Well, did he say how he could maybe use that to his advantage? I mean, sometimes you have to take advantage of those things that are given to you to at least get your foot in the door, right? And then you prove yourself, I
yeah.
guess.
And we talked about that. He was in Bucket List and Shawshank with his dad, small little parts. As a matter of fact, in Shawshank, when they show the mugshot of Morgan when he was first arrested, it's actually his son, because he was I think in his 20s or 30s then. Um, but yeah, he talks about how it does. No one hires him because he's Morgan Freeman's son. They might invite him in, but he has to prove himself.
Right. Well, that's really the case for everything. And you really don't want to go into any situation relying on someone else's talents. You want to be able to step up to the plate and deliver your best self and what you have to offer. I
What?
found that, yeah, that's a crazy concept. Thought about that, right?
Hotel riding. Come on.
If you could coattail right in a little bit just to get there, right? I mean, I'm not ashamed to do that. Why we're really getting
Hey, nepotism, baby. I'd be a
uh,
nepo baby, but I'm way too old.
this is going downhill fast, isn't it?
Oh, it's all good.
I love it. I love it. No, um, that's so cool. You really are talking to a lot of people. So, as we were talking about earlier, getting into the world of podcasting is challenging. The thing is everybody can do it if you just get a few things and try, but it does take a lot of work. But
Yeah,
I know that you are enjoying it.
I am in the. You're right about the work. I mean, we drop a new episode every Monday. Um, I kind of wanted to do every 2 weeks, and then maybe build up, because if you miss a week or if something happens, I mean, you lose your audience. It's hard to build your audience. They expect that, and once a week is a lot. Thankfully,
Yes.
our podcast like 30 minutes long. We don't keep people long. Um,
Right.
we're building a good enough reputation where people will say yes to the show most of the time. I'm not looking for dirt. It's really about who they are, some stories
Yeah.
about their relative.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a lot of work. It's, got to promote it. You have no budget to begin with. I mean, we got really lucky after a certain point. We'd start pitching, and I pitched back home, and it just happened to work out where, the price we're asking, it falls in their category. They actually support a couple other podcasts. So Visit Myrtle Beach it was a natural fit, obviously.
That's
Vanna White,
great.
Chip White, Myrtle Beach, Northland Beach, it all
Yeah.
falls in. So that takes a little of the stress off, but
Yeah.
it's not, but I'm not making a living. It's not like, hey, this is it's my full-time job with no money.
I have that same job.
I'm kind of trying to learn the podcasting world, but I got, I'm like you, man. I've got like this much bandwidth with all the other personal stuff that I'm like,
I'm with you. So talk a little bit about, you've done the film thing. Are you still thinking about uh, doing some more films, creating some more films? Like, where are you in that stage of your life?
I am still doing something. It's funny. I was supposed to have I just saw a text. I was supposed to have a table read for a short
Oh,
film that I'm going to act in. A,
cool.
a high school kid here in San Antonio, a friend of mine, Christy, she reached out. She said, "Hey, I'm mentoring these kids through this program, and would you act in a short film?" I'm like, okay, why not? And I've acted in a
Yeah.
couple of little small things here. Got another corporate gig coming up, so I'm kind of getting back into it a little bit. I really,
Mhm.
um, probably since 2022, when we first started moving around in Charlotte, and Dad passed away and we sold the house. I really haven't done a lot. It's been more literally moving us in Charlotte, moving us from Charlotte, Texas, getting us established in Texas. And we bought some property up in Kerrville, the hill country, getting that house renovated. And now we've just closed on a house here in San Antonio. I love doing it. I've still got a short script that I want to still tweak and see if I can get
Yeah.
it done.
That's awesome. Well, you're just so talented. You just have so much to bring to the table, and it's always so fun to talk to you. I think it's interesting in this new season of my life. I've had more opportunities to talk with you and engage with you, and I've really been thankful for that because you've just given great advice. You're always uplifting, and I think that's just what makes you such a wonderful human being is your outlook and how you help others, and you're always willing to if the opportunity is there to guide someone or maybe help get them in the door a little bit, you're willing to do that, and I appreciate you. So thank you personally for all you've done for me.
Oh, anytime. And speaking of which, how did your gig go?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to do a couple of films. The one you're speaking about was is Like and Subscribe, and it was filmed in Charlotte. And I was a last minute addition to this movie. They wanted just a wife in the background for Eric Roberts. So they picked me and I was like, great. So I really had no idea what it was going to be like. The kindest crew. I mean, they were just amazing. Jared Wood and Luke Fletcher, just fantastic. I mean, there's just so brilliant and everything. But I have to tell you, you see these big stars on TV, right? Eric Roberts, he's
Yep.
a big movie star. His sister's Julia Roberts. And then you meet them in person and it's just different. It's typically not what you would expect. He was very kind and I was just in the background just acting like I was his wife, I didn't have any words. That's the best thing when you don't have any words, you don't have to worry about memorizing anything or goofing it up. Just taking your cues. But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And I hope to do more. I hope to get better at learning how to act. And people would say, well, you're on television. It should be easy. It's similar, but different, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense, right?
Oh, totally. It's we can all play ourselves, but can we
Yeah,
play someone different?
I'm
And
good at doing me.
yeah, I had a guy say, can you say it without a southern accent? I'm like, dude, no, I'm.
Yeah,
This is what you get. I'll
right.
I'll act the way I can. Direct me, and I'll try to give you what you want, but I'm not a
It is
thespian.
what it is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not that person either. I can sort of get around the southern drawl a little bit, of course, but we are who we are. So it's a work in progress, and I'm learning and I'm enjoying it. So, but again, it zero money really, zero
yeah,
money.
yeah. I know, and
About
I
just
said,
having
you know what,
passion.
it is what it is. I'm blessed. My wife does well at her job. Um, some money coming, a little bit of money coming from the podcast. It's either going to work out or it's not. Whatever life it is, you're either going to starve or you're not. And
Right.
put your best foot forward. And I don't know. I just I like doing the podcast. I'm hoping it gets bigger. Obviously, I'm still pitching. I'm pitching other sponsors. I'd love to have 3,
Yeah.
and that's it, because I don't want to keep just having commercial after commercial after commercial. And I try to make them. I try to find products or sponsors that are not necessarily personal, but maybe personal, that I can connect a personal story to. Like we're talking to some golf companies. Like with Myrtle Beach, and I played golf in junior high, and I still play poorly, but I play. I think so. It'd be fun to have a golf sponsor with it. It'd be fun to have the sunglass coming. There's a million things that are compatible with Visit Myrtle Beach, that and my lifestyle, that it makes sense. Getting them to say yes, getting in the door, that's the hard part.
We may have to send some tips my way for that as well. I just think that as you try something new, you just have to just do your best, give it your best shot. I'm blessed on my end that my husband said you can retire and we can be married, and you can do some things on the side. So that's really been such a blessing to have his support, so that I can do things like this that do bring me joy. And right now I just see it as purpose and passion. And when it's time to move on, I'll move on, but we'll just keep pressing forward and getting those episodes in the can for weeks to come.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing we were talking about how hard it is. Like people will do an intro. Like we never did an intro episode. We just started with the episodes, and people say, this is what you're going to see over the course of the podcast, and every Monday, and they get 3 or 4 in, and they realize how hard work it is, how
So
time
hard.
consuming it is. They're not meeting what they promised, and that's, so it is. It's a commitment. If you're going to do a podcast, you got to be committed, because you're not going to get your audience right off the bat. I mean, you think it's out there, and you make it, they're going to come and you go, ooh, 3 views.
I know, right?
But don't they know who I am? What?
I'm relatively famous. What's happening here? I know.
So we're building, you have to build. You're building. You've been building, for a while. And I love the fact that you've continued to do it. And I know we've talked before, there are frustrating days about it. And,
yeah.
And you're still looking for, you got some sponsors. We're always looking for it. It's like a film, we need backing. But you keep going. And I think that's awesome.
Well, we both have to keep going. And I just love you to pieces. So glad that you're doing well. I love that you have your podcast. You are missed in Charlotte. I know that 100%. And we just have to stay connected, because, we're kind of like, we're just in it to win it together. So
yeah. And, if you come to Texas, you come out to San Antonio, you and your husband come hang out. We'll go up to the ranch, sit and watch the sunset or the sunrise, shoot some guns at targets, walk around the property.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you up on that. Well, listen, as we close, just remind folks where they can find Relatively Famous Podcast.
Relatively Famous can be found on our website, relativelyfamous.net. All episodes are there. You can find us on YouTube if you like to watch your podcast. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, pretty much any podcast platform. It's out there. Just look for Relatively Famous with Chip White.
I agree 100%. Everyone should look for Relatively Famous with Chip White. Chip, thanks so much for being my guest, and I'm so glad that we're friends. I appreciate you.
Oh, I love you, and I'm super proud of you, and we'll see you either in North Carolina or Texas. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Holler anytime. If you need anything, need some, I would say advice, but if you want to run something by someone for some extra ears, I'll listen.
Ditto.
Okay.
All right. That'll do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Nicole.